My name's Mike. Back in high school, I fell head over heels for Julie, who would become my first wife. We were one of those classic high school couples, and as soon as I graduated, we tied the knot. That first year together felt like pure bliss. I honestly thought I was living the dream. But it didn't take long before things started to unravel. The lies started creeping in, and I kept noticing one red flag after another. Eventually, the truth hit me like a freight train. Julie was having an affair with my best friend. That news just shattered me. I was lost, didn't have a clue who to turn to or how to even process what was happening. I went ahead and filed for divorce, but inside, I just felt numb, like I was walking around completely hollowed out. Not long after, Julie's best friend, let's call her Kate, showed up at my place wanting to talk. Turns out, Kate was in the middle of her own divorce because her husband had cheated on her too. It was like we were both standing in the same storm, and somehow that made it easier to open up. We started talking a lot, and those conversations really helped me get through the mess. Before I knew it, I was thinking about Kate all the time. I finally told her how I felt, and to my surprise, she admitted she felt the same way. That led to us having dinner together more and more, and we started spending a ton of time with each other. By the time our divorces were finalized, I was down on one knee asking Kate to marry me. She said yes, and honestly, it felt like I'd been given a second shot at happiness. Before we walked down the aisle, I sat Kate down and told her straight up that our relationship had started during a rough patch in both our lives, and that if either of us ever cheated, that would be the end for me. She agreed without hesitation. About a year into our marriage, we got the news that she was pregnant with our first son. Kate already had a little girl from her previous marriage, but her ex was never in the picture, he just wasn't around. That didn't bother me, though, because I loved that kid like she was my own, and honestly, I still do. 6 months or so after that, Kate came to me and said she was feeling lonely because I was always working. She wanted to go out to California for a while to stay with her grandparents. I was busting my tail at 2 jobs just to keep us afloat, so it was tough on me, but I figured maybe some time with her family would help her out. A few months went by, and then I got a call out of the blue. Our son had been born, and she was coming back home. But when Kate got back, she went straight to her parents' place instead of coming home to me. I went over there to see her and our baby boy, and that's when she dropped the bomb. She wanted a divorce and had already filed the paperwork. I was completely blindsided. I just stood there, not knowing what to say or even how to react. I had no idea what had gone wrong. When the papers were ready, I signed them. I did my best to see my son as much as I could, but honestly, it felt like the weight of the world was crushing me. I never had any reason to think she'd been unfaithful. I just couldn't make sense of any of it. About 4 months passed, and then one day while I was over at my mom's house doing some work, the phone rang. It was Kate, asking if she could come by and talk. She showed up and the first thing she did was apologize for everything she'd put me through. We talked for a bit, and then she told me she'd actually married another guy about 2 months earlier, but had the marriage annulled after just 2 weeks. She went on to explain that when she left for her grandparents, she honestly believed I'd been treating her badly, but after what she went through with that other guy, who turned out to be really abusive, she realized I'd always treated her well. I told Kate that when she first asked for a divorce, it felt like she'd stabbed me right in the heart, and hearing now that she'd married someone else was like twisting that knife even deeper. I asked her if I'd ever laid a hand on her, and she said, never. I asked if I'd ever told her no when she needed something, and she started crying and said, never. She hugged me, kissed me on the cheek, and told me I could come see my son anytime I wanted, that I'd always be welcome. Then she got in her car and drove away, leaving me standing there with a whole mess of feelings. After that day, Kate and I kept in touch whenever I'd come by to spend time with my son. A few months went by, and on one of my visits, Kate's grandmother happened to be there. She greeted me with a warm hug and told me just how much my boy missed me and loved me. My son had dozed off, so Kate carried him to his crib. While she was out of the room, her grandma leaned in and asked if I'd consider coming to the family reunion the next weekend. I told her I appreciated the invite, but honestly, I didn't think it was the best idea. I figured Kate probably didn't want to have to explain to everyone why her ex-husband was hanging around. Not long after, I said my goodbyes and headed out. As I was leaving, Kate walked with me to my car and mentioned she'd overheard me and her grandma talking. She said she'd really like it if I could make it to the reunion. The truth is, I still cared deeply for Kate, and I knew in my heart she'd never been unfaithful. So, after mulling it over, I decided to go. The next weekend rolled around, and I was on my way to the reunion. I had to work late that night, so I ended up grabbing a hotel room nearby. When I finally made it to the park for the reunion, I found out that Grandma had already told everyone I'd be there, and she made it clear it was at her and Kate's request. Nobody was supposed to make a fuss about it. As the evening wound down, I let everyone know I'd gotten a hotel up the road and was heading out to get some rest. Kate, along with her sister and cousin, wanted to come back to the hotel and swim in the pool. When we got back to the room, I pointed to one of the beds and said, "That's where I'm sleeping. Y'all can figure out where you want to crash." The room had 2 beds, so there was plenty of space. I watched a little TV and drifted off. The next morning, I woke up to find Kate's sister and cousin in one bed, and Kate herself was in the bed with me. After we all got back home from the reunion, Kate started asking if there was any chance we could be a family again. I didn't really give her a straight answer right away. A few days later, there was a knock at my door. It was Kate's dad. He's a man I've always respected, a real hard worker. He looked serious as he told me, "Mike, I've got 4 daughters, and they're all married, but you're the only son-in-law I've ever really considered family." He'd overheard Kate and her mom talking about the possibility of us getting back together, and he wanted to warn me. He said Kate wasn't worth it and that she'd only end up breaking my heart again. I couldn't believe her own father was saying that. I thanked him for coming by and told him I needed some time to think things over. About a week later, I went to see him and told him the truth. I still loved his daughter, I missed my kids, and since Kate had never cheated on me, I wanted to give our family another shot. Man, looking back, maybe I should have listened to Pops. He always seemed to know what was up. He looked down at the floor, then back at me, and promised he'd make sure Kate's mom stayed out of it this time. That's when I learned that her mom had been in her ear during our marriage, telling her I was treating her badly. Later on, her mom actually came by and apologized for all the pain she'd caused. She told me that if I decided to give Kate another chance, she'd keep her distance and not interfere. So, that's how it happened. My ex-wife became my wife again. We got remarried, and things were going really well. About a year later, we welcomed another son into the family. We started going to services at our local Baptist church. Because of my work schedule, I could only make it on Sundays, but Kate and the kids went every Sunday morning and evening, plus Wednesdays. I was juggling a full-time job, a part-time gig, and trying to get my own business off the ground at the same time. One evening, while I was at my part-time job, Kate showed up and told me she and the kids hardly ever saw me anymore because I was always working. She suggested I quit my part-time gig so I could spend more time with the family, and she'd pick up a job herself. She said it'd give her a chance to get out of the house, too. I told her if that's what she wanted, we'd figure it out and make it work. So, Kate landed a job at a local spot that served ice cream and burgers. She moved up the ranks pretty quickly, first to shift manager, then assistant manager. She was really proud of herself, and honestly, I was proud of her too. After a few months, though, she started coming home later and later. I started to wonder what was going on, since the place closed at 10. When I asked her about it, Kate explained that after closing and cleaning up, she and the manager, along with a few co-workers, would head over to Denny's. They'd drink coffee and talk about ways to boost sales and make closing up shop go smoother, so she could eventually get home to us earlier. I told her I loved her and went to bed, but something didn't sit right. About 5 or 6 weeks later, I woke up one morning and Kate was nowhere to be found. I started to panic, thinking maybe she'd gotten into an accident or something. I got the kids up and we started the 20-minute drive into town to look for her. On the way, we passed Kate driving the other direction, so we turned around and headed back home. Once I got the kids settled back in bed, I asked Kate what was going on. I told her I'd been worried sick, thinking something bad had happened. She told me she'd gone to a friend's house to watch a movie and ended up falling asleep on their couch. I didn't buy it. There were just too many warning signs, so I kept pressing for the truth. Finally, she admitted she'd been at a coworker's place, and they'd been sleeping together. I reminded her of the promise we made, that cheating was a deal breaker for me. I went to our bedroom, grabbed a bag, and packed up some of her clothes. I set the bag on the couch and told her car was out front, and she needed to leave. I told Kate it was over, and she had to go. I said I'd be keeping my boys, but as much as I wanted to, there was no way a court would let me keep her little girl. Kate finally spoke up and said, "If it makes you feel any better," he didn't even finish. I just stared at her. No, that didn't make me feel any better at all. I was furious and heartbroken at the same time. It felt like my insides had turned to ice. Realizing she'd just lost everything, Kate went to the bedroom, grabbed a bottle of pills, and started swallowing them by the handful. I went to the kitchen, got her a glass of water, and told her I didn't want her choking before she left my house. I went back to the bedroom, and I guess that's when it really hit her that I was done for good. She bolted out the door and ran to the neighbor's place. The neighbor came running over, saying Kate was taking a bunch of pills, and grabbed the bottle. He rushed her to the emergency room. Meanwhile, I stayed at home with the kids while she was at the hospital. A little while later, there was a knock at my door. It was our pastor. He told me, "Mike, I know you're having a rough morning, but Kate needs you. The hospital is doing everything they can to save her, but they need you to sign some paperwork." I told him, if they're already doing everything they can, I don't see how my signature is going to make a difference. Then I told him what had happened. The pastor said I needed to forgive her, but I told him that just wasn't possible. Later on, I found someone to watch the kids and made my way to the hospital. There were a lot of people there. Kate's manager came over and asked what was going on. I told her about those late-night coffee meetings after work, and she said she didn't know anything about them. I told her about the affair with the coworker, and that with the owner of the company being a good Christian man, I doubted he'd be okay with this kind of thing happening among his employees. Kate's manager said she'd take care of it. In the end, the hospital was able to save Kate's life. A couple days after everything went down, Kate's manager called her up and let her go, along with the coworker she'd been having the affair with. When it was time for Kate to leave the hospital, the doctor said she couldn't be released unless she had some kind of counseling lined up. Our pastor stepped in and said he had the training to help, so he agreed to counsel her. Kate started going to those sessions a few times a week. But about a month into her counseling, Kate and the pastor ran off together, blowing up not just my family, but his family and our whole church community, too. Almost a month later, Kate came back wanting to talk. She wanted to know if there was any hope for us to patch things up. I told her I just didn't see that happening. She asked if she could see the boys, but I told her they were asleep and had school in the morning. She ended up staying for a week, and during that time, I got the divorce papers from my lawyer. I let her look them over and told her if there was anything she didn't understand, she could go to the lawyer and, for a small fee, he'd explain it all to her. A couple days after that, Kate went to my lawyer and told him we needed reconciliation paperwork. The lawyer gave her the forms, and Kate brought them to me, saying all we had to do was sign and we could get back together. I told her to just leave them on my dresser with the divorce papers, and by the end of the week, one of those sets would be signed. We took the kids to the park because we needed to have a real talk. While we were sitting there, I asked Kate, if I gave you a big enough child support check, would I ever have to worry about seeing you or the kids again? She didn't even hesitate, just said, no. I told her that wasn't what I wanted to hear, but it was what I needed to know. Later that day, I went home, signed the divorce papers, and took them to my lawyer the next morning. I also told him that the reconciliation paperwork should be free, since I never asked for it in the first place. All this happened more than 30 years ago. I thought I'd moved on, but looking back, I realize how much it shaped me. I raised my boys by myself, without any help from Kate. They might not have had every little thing they wanted, but I made sure they always had what they needed. I still keep in touch with my stepdaughter, too. She's grown now, got kids and even grandkids of her own. Whenever we talk, she always ends the call with, "Bye, love you, Dad." That still gets me every time. Over the years, I missed out on some great women, and I never really understood why until recently. Turns out, all the chaos my ex-wives put me through made it hard for me to open up again. Once you get burned, it's tough to want to risk it all over. I appreciate you taking the time to read my story. Thanks, Mike. And, well, there's a little update I want to share. Just last week, I found out my ex-wife's husband, the preacher, passed away. She's moved back to the same state I'm in. I haven't heard from her yet, but I've got a feeling she'll reach out and try to turn my world upside down again. On top of all that, I'm fighting cancer, and honestly, I'm not sure I've got it in me to deal with more drama. I could really use some help, and I appreciate you listening. You actually sent me an email a while back, asking if I could share your story. You mentioned you were battling cancer, and you liked the way I tell these stories. You just wanted your story to be heard. So, let me just say, I really hope you're hanging in there. I remember your last email, you were asking when I'd be able to get to your story, and you mentioned you'd been fighting cancer for 2 years. You said folks say a positive attitude helps with recovery. You weren't sure if I'd read your story or if it was too long, but I did read it when you first sent it. Yours definitely stood out, and I always meant to get to it. Let me just say this, man, you've really been through the ringer. You started off talking about how you got burned a couple of times, and honestly, even getting burned once can be enough to make you never want to trust again. I'll be real with you, I'm in my 30s now, and I've got my own issues with trust. I just don't trust people easily anymore. When you've been lied to over and over, when you've always tried to be honest and given everything you had to a woman, done everything you thought was right, and you still end up getting betrayed, it changes you. It's like, you catch them red-handed, and instead of owning up to it, they say something ridiculous like, "It's your fault," or, "It was just a mistake." I mean, your ex even told you, if it makes you feel better, he didn't even finish. That's just a whole new level of disrespect. So, I get it, man. I really do. After you've been burned so many times, or even just once too many, it's hard to trust anyone again. You went through life raising your kids, and you never let yourself get close to another woman. It's sad, honestly, because people always talk about finding that unicorn, that one special person, and I've heard stories about guys who remarried after getting hurt and ended up happy. There are guys out there who found love again and it worked out. But for a lot of us, those scars from the past just make it impossible to open up again. You probably met some great women, but after what your ex-wives put you through, you just couldn't bring yourself to commit. It's like, why risk going through all that pain again? Because it really does hurt. You give your heart to someone, and they just stomp all over it without a care. It's pitiful, man. It's just plain wrong. And then there's the whole thing where she's saying, "We want to see you more, so why don't you quit your part-time job and I'll get a job so I can get out of the house." But deep down, she already knew what she was planning. She probably had that affair going on for a while, and when she tried to jump ship to that other guy and it didn't work out, she just came running back. That's why I always say, and you'll hear it from everyone else in the comments too, you don't take them back. Just let them go, man. Don't look back. But honestly, I wish you nothing but the best. You said you've been fighting cancer for 2 years now. That's tough, man. I'm glad to hear your stepdaughter still calls you dad and keeps in touch, and your boys are doing well. You raised them right, and that's something to be proud of. Salute to you, man. Thanks for sharing your story, it really was something. If there's a lesson in all this, I'd say it's this: don't take them back. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Don't make the mistake of giving them another chance to hurt you. I've been there myself, thinking someone was truly sorry, believing the tears and the apologies, only to get hurt all over again. It's just not worth it. Don't take a cheater back, ever. If someone disrespects you like that, they're done. Move on. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments, and I'll catch you at the next one.